Friday edition of the Flagship. I'm your host, Zach Berry. Joining me on threes, Andy Staples. Before we get into his extended conversation with Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin, I do want to remind you this show is powered by the good folks at College Corner. You need to get some swag, you need to get some merch, some tailgating supplies, whatever. They have got you covered. 3 locations, Oxford, Ridgeland, and Flowood. Brick and mortar. If you can't get there, go to collegecornerstore.com. They've got you covered. Shipping and handling is choice. You will get all of your needs quickly. That is College Corner. If you're in Oxford, it's on Sisk Avenue. Go check them out. 4,000 square feet. Fantastic space. Scott and the folks over there do a great job outfitting everyone. Ole Miss gear. They've got Realtree. They've got Peach Bowl gear. Still got some Ole Miss baseball national championship gear around. So check them out in those 3 locations or online, collegecornerstore.com. Andy, good afternoon. Talked with Lane Kiffin. How was it?
Yeah. Talked to him on Tuesday and wrote a couple stories off the conversation we had. And, it's interesting because I wanted to ask Lane some big picture questions because he's always been a little more straightforward about the big picture stuff than a lot of his colleagues. People will say, "Oh, well, Lane says college football is a disaster," and he did say that in Destin last year. But I think sometimes they miss the point with Lane.
Yeah,
he's going to say that stuff because he believes it. Like, it's very difficult to work in this environment.
Yeah.
That said, he's figured out how to work in this environment better than most other coaches. I would argue that he and Mike Norvell from Florida State are probably the 2 that have figured out the best how to manage in this environment without having the superior resources of, say, like a Georgia or an Ohio State, where you just have everything. And it's allowed them to change sort of the echelon their program sits in. And that's what Lane was talking about. He was pointing out, yes, I said all this stuff. And he said, yes, I believe all that. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try to figure out how to best deal with it and how to best manage it. And I think he pointed out that there were some other coaches that were like, this is temporary, or this shouldn't happen. Players shouldn't be paid, that sort of thing. And that belief probably hurt them because it made them slower to adapt.
Yeah. We've talked about it so much on our show. You've talked about it on your show. Everybody's talked about it, how Kiffin was one of the first, I think he was the first to really truly embrace the portal. And maybe he knew it was coming, maybe, that kind of thing where he's like, I'm going to have to embrace it at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's more than just, okay, we're going to embrace the portal by trying to get guys. After that, it's roster management, retention, re-recruiting guys, de-recruiting guys at certain spots. But yeah, that's probably his best job outside of winning football games and, generating revenue for the university and for the town of Oxford. I mean, that ability that he has somehow figured out how to navigate those waters. And
it's not just that he's navigated them well. He came up with ideas early on that you could tell he knew what he wanted and was executing. Now, they've taken 1-year transfers. Like Spencer Sanders was a good example of 1-year transfer, but that's essentially like having a GA almost. But look at some of those early transfer classes. I'm back at the 2022 transfer class. So you've got Jackson Dart, who is the headliner of that, but JJ Pegues, Ulysses Bentley, Jared Ivey, these are all players who are going to contribute to Ole Miss this year.
Yeah.
The 3rd year they've been in the program. And
very rare.
Back in the old days, you would recruit guys out of high school hoping they would give you 3 good years.
Yeah.
Whether that was the first 3 years or the last 3 years, like, it didn't matter. You wanted 3 good years out of them. And I think that's one of the things that he was looking at. And the reason he did it, he was perfectly honest about it. Like, with the old transfer rules, the ones that don't apply after the federal court case in December, but the old transfer rules, you had to sit out a year on your second transfer as an undergrad. So if you got somebody who was an undergrad, who had used that first transfer, you were going to get a chance to work with them. You were going to get a chance to develop them. They couldn't hold you hostage for more NIL money. They couldn't threaten to leave. And it probably made it more manageable, because what I had asked him was, how did you figure out the chemistry piece? Because that's, I think, the questions. And you look at it with Ole Miss this year, like they brought in a bunch more new players. And every time you see a big influx of players onto a team, you think, okay, is that going to work together? Are those guys going to mesh? Will the culture that exists there be strong enough if you get a few who don't really fit in with it or want to do it a different way? And that's really, I think, the secret sauce with Kiffin and with Norvell. Like, you kind of know what that program is. You kind of know how they operate. You understand the culture, and the new people fit in or they don't. And if they don't, they just sort of get minimized, and the ones who fit in thrive.
Yeah, that's been like the big thing, talking with people around the program, and just and it's a testament to the Grove Collective as well. You mentioned all these third year guys who could have gone somewhere else, could have gone pro, and not all of them, but I mean they could always go somewhere else. But I think with collectives and NIL, it's helped that as well. But yeah, I mean they use culture, they use pro mindset, all of these catchphrases and buzzwords. But I think it's true with getting guys to mesh in a locker room that have only known each other for 5 months, 6 months, where
Well, and everybody knows who's making, maybe not exactly who's making what,
yeah,
but it's very clear. Like when Walter Nolan walks into the locker room, he's doing okay for himself with NIL. Like, he was very sought after.
yeah.
Juice Wells, same situation. And you've got to figure out how to navigate that and manage that. But that one, I think athletes are actually better equipped to manage that than other human beings. And all other human beings have to manage it in their daily lives. Like, we all work at companies where not everybody makes the same amount of money. And we're not getting in fights over that all the time. Like, usually it's set up in a way where you understand why this person makes more than me or this person makes less. Like, it makes sense. And in most cases, it makes sense. Now, sometimes in college football, it doesn't. And that's where you get into weird situations. But that's what, and I asked Lane about this too, in terms of scouting. Like, how much different is scouting now? Because you really do have to figure out exactly what somebody's worth as a player, not necessarily monetarily even, but where they fit in the hierarchy before you make any decisions about the transfer. How does this person fit into my team? And I thought he gave a really interesting answer on that, because he's like, before it was just like, it was a 2-question thing. It was yes or no. Do I give this person a scholarship or not? Now it is this person, worth what they might command from a collective?
Yeah.
Are they worth more than what I'd get in the alternative? Like, perhaps somebody costs as much as 4 starters at another position or at other positions. Is the one guy that special that they're worth 4 other starters? And these are the decisions coaches have to make. We didn't name any names. So, like, Quinshawn Judkins' name did not come up. But obviously, that's an example of when you have a good player and the situation may not be working out because you may not feel their value is what they feel their value is. And then you have to make that decision. It's not any different than when an NFL team has a guy who's going to be a free agent, and now they have the franchise tag, which makes it a little bit different. But if they did, let's say they use their franchise tag, or they decided they're not going to use it on them, like, they got to decide if they're going to let them walk or if it's worth giving up something else to keep them.
That's been the big thing with Ole Miss. And, I haven't gotten this verbatim from folks on staff or in the collective, but it's pretty obvious where they are pretty strategic with allocating resources and not over. It's like the MLB draft where you have slot
Yep.
values, where a lot of teams don't go over slot because more times than not, it's a 17, 18-year-old, and you're not going to pay over.
Yes.
it's a sure thing. Ole Miss has done a good job of staying true to that mantra of like, this is where we set the value. We're not going over it because we have to allocate resources elsewhere to fill out the rest of the roster. So, I mean, I think that's what happened with Tyler Barron. Leaves Tennessee, goes to Ole Miss, moves into a house, is in Oxford, and then Louisville comes calling, up the
Price
price.
goes up. Yeah.
And Ole Miss was, hey, we wish you the best. Like, good luck. Like, we're not going over because we got to fill X, Y, and Z. So I think that's been like this whole delicate dance of NIL and the portal that Kiffin and everybody are on the same page, which has really helped. Is they're just going to stick to, Kiffin always talks about the book, the analytics book. I think they have like a transfer portal collective book as well. We're like, hey, we're sticking to this plan and we're not deviating.
So he uses analytics in everything, including pickleball, I learned. So you've seen the tweets with the pickleball bracket, right?
Yeah.
And the last tweet you saw was him beating his daughter's team.
Yeah.
You notice you haven't seen another tweet with the bracket, right?
Seems pretty obvious there.
So they lost the next round, which was the semis. And I'm blanking on who they lost to. Lane said it was two younger guys. I'll have to go back and check my bracket. But he said initially the tournament was conceived as a double elimination. And so they could have tried to win their way back through the losers bracket and then had to play those guys again. And in that situation, you'd have to beat them twice to win the championship. Well, Lane read the analytics book and cut a deal before the semis and said, winner take all here. No double elim. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever loses can't come back. He's like, I was the underdog. I had to shorten the game.
See, yeah,
it didn't pay off.
Against Omaha and went for March Madness and didn't work.
Yep.
I know I wanted you to ask him about EA Sports College Football 25. I know as of now, coaches likeness, AI, however you want to call it, not in the game, which is probably for the best. There'd probably be some revenue sharing and some issues there as opposed to players getting $600 in a free game. But what was his take on that question, just kind of the game in general?
So I said, would you have Jimmy work a deal for you to be in the game? He's like, I would be in the game for free. He's like, these other coaches don't understand the recruiting value of being in that game because they see you, they play as you, like you become part of it. And so I was like, because if you're in the, if you got Lane Kiffin in the game, you have to create an animation where maybe it's just one play, but when a receiver pops open downfield, you see the coach on the sideline throw the play sheet in the air. Like, it would be amazing if they had, Lane and a visor doing that.
Yeah.
And I would love to have the coaches in the game because I think obviously coaches give college football so much personality. But Lane's thing was either put me in it for free, or if you're going to give me money, just give it to the collective because I can use it that way. Like, he's pretty well taken care of, as we know.
Yeah.
And, the way he looks at it is, how can I improve the roster through this? Yeah. And I think so Lane and I both have 14-year-old sons. And I think when you have a person like that who you're dealing with on a regular basis, you kind of understand how they consume media a little better. And like you could put a commercial on the largest most far-reaching TV network in the country, and my son wouldn't see it at all.
Yeah.
But if you put it as a pop-up in Madden or Call of Duty, like or a playable skin or something like that, like he would know exactly what it is. It would be intimately familiar with it. Like, so that's the thing. That's where it's really smart. And I've said this too with the players, like, because I remember when the $600 thing came out, and everybody's like, well, they're worth more than that. Well, no, most of them aren't. But even the ones who are probably smart to just take the $600, unless EA Sports wants to, because EA Sports has figured out a way to slip some people a little extra. The ones that are tweeting out that I'm in the game, I think they're getting a little extra scratch for advertising the game. Yeah. But their NIL value will go up because if you like, I'm convinced the two most popular teams to play with in this game that hasn't come out yet will be Kansas and Kansas State, because people want to play as Jalen Daniels and Avery Johnson. Like if their skill sets match their real life skill sets, they'll be the most fun to play as on the video game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, that was my thing. We talked about it earlier this week on our show about Arch Manning choosing not to. And look, make your own decision. That's fine. But yeah, I don't really know the quote was he wants to focus more on football on the field. Where it's like, okay, but like, think of the opportunity of, okay, maybe you don't want the $600, take it and donate it somewhere, or just any kind of brand awareness, brand building strategy. Do it, throw it to the collective, throw it back to the collective or something. I don't know. But to me, it was more of like the opportunity to be in this game that probably, I haven't even looked it up yet, but like the highest grossing video game sales, this game might challenge or surpass that, whatever it is. I don't know what game has been sold the most, but like, this is gonna, like, 10, 11 years.
The pinup demand is pretty incredible for this thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, I was trying to decide if I want to get the PS5 that you get a disc for, or it's all digital.
Don't get a disc. This is not 2013.
But it's also like, just get everything digital, because a disc, can you imagine the lines that are going to be at Target and GameStop? And like,
I would hope there are no lines, because everybody's smart enough to know you just download it at home.
But I was like, I don't want to get to that conundrum where I can't find the game.
See, this is where me having a 14-year-old son helps. Like, I already know how this is going to play out. I know how this is going to work, and I'm not waiting in line for squat.
Yeah, I mean, I have a PS4 now where you just download everything now, so that's easy.
Now, stealing my son's PlayStation 5 is going to be the real caper for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's are you going to have to like put it on the calendar like for hours each night, or how's that going to work? I guess he's got bedtime.
I feel like I pay for the house, and I also paid for the PlayStation, so I should be able to play it whenever I want.
Well, the
question is venue, because it's in his room, and I would like to have it in my office. I have a bigger TV in my office than he has in his room, and I feel like it'd be a better place to play. So
then you're going to be moving.
That would be that's the tricky part that we have to figure out. But we will get to that, because I mean, and like dealing with my wife, I think I've got that figured out. Like, listen, it's for work. I have to learn these teams. I have to learn their playbooks. I have to learn their personnel. These are the real players.
Like,
I need to learn them.
I have to win my last 4 games with MTSU to get to a bowl game.
Oh, the MTSU dynasties and the FIU dynasties and the Akron dynasties are just going to be tremendous.
Call Drew Moak of USA Benefits Group. He can help you with any of your health insurance needs. Drew is an Ole Miss grad located in Mississippi and licensed in 7 states. He works with the nation's second largest health insurance brokerage with access to 35 different carriers, regular health plans, to life insurance, to dental and vision, and even Medicare. He has it all covered. Now more than ever, it is critical to have a health insurance agent who is local and accessible. So call Drew Moak at 601-953-8449. 601-953-8449 and get your free quote today.
The College Corner is headed to Oxford. Stop by their new location in the Oxford Commons off Sisk Avenue. They'll have 4,000 square feet of Rebel gear ready for your trip to the Grove. On your next trip to Oxford, stop by the College Corner or our other great locations in Ridgeland and Flowood. Hats, shirts, polos, pullovers, sweats, t-shirts. College Corner has it all. And as always, you can visit us online at collegecornerstore.com. That's collegecornerstore.com. The College Corner, where your game day apparel meets.
All right, so I did a quick effort. Minecraft, this is per Wikipedia, over 300 million sales.
And I believe it's a free download. I think to get the full featured version is like either 10 or $20. So we're not like that's going to do better numbers just because of it's cheaper. But
multi-platform.
This one, Yeah, this one's going to do monster numbers. I think Madden's a good comparison. It's obviously another EA Sports product. The NFL is bigger than college football, as we know. So I think if it can touch near Madden numbers, then it's a raging success.
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5 is second at just shy of 200 million sales.
Now that's pretty amazing because that one does cost,
Yeah.
when it came out, it costs a little more. So
What as far as the expanded playoff and obviously a better opportunity, I don't know if you discussed that with Lane, or I know you went big picture and he kind of likes the off
we
the
didn't
wall
have
stuff.
time once he fixed college football.
Okay. So how did he fix college football?
He thinks they should be employees and have contracts and
Yeah.
just something, man, and a salary cap, which we didn't get into the union stuff, but I think he's smart enough to understand that sort of thing probably has to get collectively bargained. And
Yeah.
he said, revenue sharing would need to be part of the equation too. And so I think he understands how you create a manageable system now. I think that's probably there's nothing easy about it. There's a whole lot of hurdles to clear to get to all that, but that is the most manageable, and it's also the most familiar. We've seen it. The NFL has it, the NBA has it, the NHL has it. Major League Baseball actually does not because they don't have a salary cap. But it is something everybody understands, and I'll be honest. I think the best programs are already kind of geared that way now. Like we talked about it with the personnel department thing. Like they're turning into capologists essentially. Whether it's a capologist or someone just figuring out how to do it within the amount of money you have allotted for your payroll, which is how every business in the world does it, like that isn't dealing with a cap. Somebody's got to figure out who's worth what. And I think you're seeing that in real time in major college football. So if you had a salary cap that was similar to the NFL's or the NBA's, I think you probably get a few more quants that you'd hire just to make sure the numbers all work out. But I do think they're already kind of moving there. They're already setting up their front offices in a similar fashion.
I mean, outside of fixing college football, what was kind of the biggest takeaway from talking with him heading into year 5? So much hype and intrigue this season coming up.
Yeah, we didn't actually get into the rat poison very much because I've asked him and heard him talk quite a bit about what the expectations are like now, how different it is having those expectations. And, it's Lane. He just he shrugs that sort of stuff off. And so I figured I'd talk to him about some stuff that I hadn't heard him talk about at length. And so, I think he probably, part of the reason I got some pretty expansive answers is I was not forcing him to talk about the pressure on this team to make the playoff, because let's be real here. That's the expectation. The expectation is the playoff is expanding to 12 teams. This is the best team he's had at Ole Miss. The schedule, as far as SEC schedule draws in the new era, the schedule looks manageable.
Yeah.
Obviously, Georgia showing up, not going to be easy, but
yeah,
it looks like something they can deal with. And I think all of the pressure is on him, especially you take Nick Saban out of the equation. Like, you don't see people expecting Alabama necessarily to make the college football playoff. It's sort of 50-50. Like, okay, maybe they'll win 10 or 11, but maybe they won't.
Yeah.
And we would just slot them in if Nick Saban were still there.
Right.
Just like we slot Georgia in because Kirby Smart's still there.
Yeah.
And so, like, Georgia lives with those expectations every year. This is a new thing for Ole Miss. But the thing is, Ole Miss has to worry about, what about Tennessee? Like, we're not really talking about them. But as far as schedule draws go, I'd say Ole Miss and Tennessee got the best ones. Now, maybe that's wrong. Maybe somebody that we think isn't going to be that great is going to wind up being awesome. But I think those two look like the ones that could be 10, 11 game winners. Texas, the expectations are massive. The expectations are for them to compete for the SEC title right out of the gate. Their schedule's hard. I'm telling you right now, it's tough. And I don't know. We don't know. we think they're going to be pretty good, but we don't know. LSU, they've won 10 games both years of Brian Kelly's tenure. You think about, Zach, if they imagine if LSU had rolled into Oxford with even a quasi decent defense.
Yeah, that's like my biggest thing with them is
different season.
Yeah, I see them. It's preseason, so it doesn't matter. It's just stuff for people to talk about. But LSU being in the top 10 is interesting to me because on paper they haven't really done anything to fix the defense.
Right. Offensively, they're going to take a step back. Defensively, they've changed the staff, but personnel-wise, they haven't had a chance to add as much.
They're doubling down on keeping Harold Perkins on the interior, which I think is crazy. New coordinator, but who is Nussmeier throwing to? Who is going to make tackles for a defense that could not stop anyone? So, the SEC is going to be fun because of obviously the new members, Texas and Oklahoma, are going to make. I mean, Ole Miss gets to host Oklahoma next year, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, but before I'll start, CJ Daniels, the Liberty transfer, is who they're going to be throwing to. That guy's really good. He's as good as Trey Harris was for Ole Miss last year. I think that's the expectation. Obviously, now Ole Miss is getting Juice Wells to go along with Trey Harris, and that could be pretty exciting. But CJ Daniels in LSU's offense could be pretty fun.
Yeah, but Brian Thomas is gone, League Neighbors is gone, Logan Diggs is now at Ole Miss.
Right.
So sure, it's kind of one of those where it's like the joke of, early to mid 2000s Wisconsin, where I would always joke preseason poll, just put them at 14.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna win 9 games.
Yeah, Notre Dame, competent quarterback, just put them at 13. So the storylines for the SEC, I mean, how much time you got? I mean, tons of fun. It's going to be a season unlike any other that we have covered, not only because of the college football playoff expanding, but just new members. And that's what I'm excited to see is how will Texas handle week in, week out SEC play and being everyone's Super Bowl.
Well, in Oklahoma too, because I feel like people are sleeping on Oklahoma. When the win total came out, I was shocked because it's 7.5 now. It was 6.5 when it came out. I was like, have you guys not watched Oklahoma for the last 8 decades? They've had 5 bad years. They're usually really good.
Yeah, jump on the 6.5 easy.
Even 7.5. Because here's the thing, and I was talking to our guys from Sooner Scoop about this. They go 8-4, you cash your ticket.
Yeah,
and they're ready to fire Brent Venables. That 8-4 is not acceptable there. So I do think they're going to be better than people think. That mystifies me. The idea that Oklahoma, which has been good every conference it's played in, is suddenly not going to be able to compete in this one. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Jackson Arnold could do with a full season. New coordinator is a little, a wrench.
Both sides of the ball. Yeah.
But I mean, Venables is there. The defense,
right? It's Brent's defense, and then it's not like Seth Littrell has not run effective offenses in college football before.
Right.
It's different because they're going from the veer and shoot that Jeff Lebby ran, and now I don't think they're going completely over to the air raid. I think some of those concepts have been married, and Littrell was there, and they're going to be pretty familiar with what they're running by the end of the spring. I don't think it's going to be that hard of an adjustment.
Yeah, and a lot of those Mike Leach disciples have kind of put their own twist on things over time too.
Right, so, right. What Dana Holgorsen was running at the end at Houston did not resemble what Mike Leach ran. So
yeah. Last thing here. I mean, talking with Lane, did you talk about fishing? I know it was a lot of very.
I didn't get a chance. I had fishing questions because I'm actually going. I'm scheduled to go fishing down in the Keys on Sunday.
Okay.
And I'm very excited. And I should have asked more fishing questions, but I think I wasted my bullets with pickleball. And I did ask him, because his son has been taking part in quarterback camps, and as young, starting high school. And I thought, it was interesting hearing Lane talk about that because he said, you kind of forget as a coach how the player feels on the other side. But as a dad, you are acutely aware of how your kid feels. How important every rep in front of a coach at a camp is, or getting to throw to this receiver or that receiver. And so that was interesting hearing him talk about how different that is, and kind of gives him a little different perspective when he's recruiting, and when he's dealing with kids. He'll have obviously players in camp in June, and he'll be dealing with them and deciding, do I offer this guy a scholarship? Do I want to take this person? And I think you might look at that through a little different lens now that his son is going to be doing that every summer for a little while.
Yeah. He's always looking for an angle, always looking for an edge when recruiting.
Yeah. Well, that one, I don't know how much of an edge it is, because I think it makes the business aspect of it a little tougher when you realize, how nervous a kid is sometimes. Like, I'm doing a rep in front of the head coach of Ole Miss, or I'm doing a rep in front of the head coach at USC. Like, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. I never had to deal with that, Andy. So I can't.
I didn't either.
Not relate. Yeah.
I was the kid at those camps that they're like, yeah. You guys go over there. You two come on over here. And they were not talking to me.
Last thing, you introduced the idea of a super league. I don't know if you talked to Kiffin about it, but have you run it up the flagpole to anybody to try to fast track it to maybe 2026, 2027?
Well, Trent Dilfer says it's going to happen by 2026. And he's a sitting FBS head coach, who I figured, I thought that was interesting. And so the what got me thinking about it was I'd done this rant on my show on Friday about, this idea that the SEC and the Big Ten are pushing for a 14-team playoff where their champions get the only buys. And I'm like, guys, this is just a little too naked. Like,
yeah,
it's too much. Like, clearly you're trying to protect your championship games, keep them commercially viable. But like, writing down that you're stacking the deck against everybody else, like, don't write that down. That's not good for business. And then that night, Cole Kubelik sends me a text, and it's a clip from his show that morning that he does with Greg McElroy. And Trent Dilfer had been the guest, and Trent had said he thinks all this schism happens in the next 2 years. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting, because one, he is a sitting FBS head coach. So him saying that is significant in general, but also because Trent spent so much time at ESPN. He's friends with a lot of the people who pull these sorts of levers. And so I brought Cole on the show on Monday, and we talked about, okay, it does feel like this is happening. Like, everything we've thought was going to happen has happened faster than we thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, like, how many times am I going to be wrong about this before I wise up and realize maybe this is going to happen faster? And so that's the piece of it. I have no idea when or how, but we'll see. Like, as we're recording this, the Dartmouth players have just voted to unionize. Like, stuff like that. If the National Labor Relations Board does declare the Dartmouth basketball players or the USC players to be employees, then it fast tracks this stuff. There's some court cases that could fast track this stuff, that could change all of the dynamics, force them into a new economic model, which might solve some of the who gets picked and who gets left behind. Like, that might solve it in general, or at least help solve it by some of them saying, no, thank you, we're not going to be part of this. And others saying, oh, we have the resources to do this, let's do this. And so and again, I don't know, like, would the Big Ten and the SEC work together? Would they try to create kind of mirror images of one another? Would they merge? Would they, what would that look like? Would they split off football and just do football separately and have everybody else operate under the NCAA umbrella? None of these questions have answers right now. But what's kind of crazy is it could in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I talked about that on my show earlier this week with David Brandt, where I used your Super League pitch, and we talked about it and what it would mean, and And that's what I said. It's probably going to happen.
Right.
So everybody
Also,
needs
and as Cole pointed out, and Dilfer pointed this out as well, there's private equity folks that want to get into college sports. Now, I think it's a little more complicated than getting into pro sports because you're dealing with things that are part of, in a lot of cases, part of public universities. So, like, I don't think it's as easy as being able to buy a piece of a team. Like, you can buy a piece of an NFL team, and it doesn't work that way in college football, I don't think. But who knows? Because, like, we've seen the emails between Florida State and some people. Like, they're exploring it.
Yeah.
That's real. And so I think anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen is lying, because I don't think even Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti, the commissioners of the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't think they know what's going to happen. I think there are things that are outside of their control. Like, they probably have contingencies. Like, I think this will happen if these three things happen. But until those other things that are outside of their control actually take place, I don't think they can do much.
Yeah. Right. I mean, everybody's kind of once the wall is knocked down. I mean, it's just it'll happen really fast. So
right. And I don't know. I mean, I did my crack at a 48 team Super League where I had like the SEC and the Big Ten kind of mirroring each other. Each one had 4 6-team divisions, and I had them do their own playoff. Each one did an 8-team playoff that fed into a neutral site game versus their champions.
Which, by the way,
I would have watched it.
Yeah. If you sell merch for the Moonshine division, I'll buy it.
Oh, yeah. The SEC Moonshine division is probably my greatest creation. I'm sure Alabama and Auburn don't like being lumped in here, but it was the only way I was trying, and it didn't necessarily feel like I had to keep Alabama and Auburn in the same division, because I did split Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten. And my thing is, you can figure out a scheduling system where they can play every year. Like, you can protect it. They don't need to be like, if I had put them in the same division, it would have really messed up competitive balance. So what I did with the SEC Moonshine, I was trying to keep it as geographic as possible.
Right.
But also competitively balanced across the divisions. So the Moonshine division is Alabama and Auburn, but the reason it's called the Moonshine division is the other teams I had were Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. Like, that is,
I mean, it's perfect.
That's as moonshine as it gets.
Yeah, literally perfect. Check out Andy Staples on 3 wherever you get your podcasts. He's got shows pretty much every day with everybody across the board that knows,
including Zach,
including me. I've somehow been lumped into this group of experts who know and love college football. You can also read him at on3.com. Also, check out his story, his conversation with Lane Kiffin. A lot of good stuff there. You kind of peel behind the curtain a little bit with Lane, where you're not just talking ball. Like, he opens up a little bit.
Yeah, and some coaches are like that. Like, I interviewed Leach a lot of times, and Leach never wanted to talk on the record about his team.
Yeah,
ever. So he'd be happy to talk about Wolves or Geronimo or barbecue or whatever, as long as you didn't turn the conversation toward who's going to be the starting quarterback next year.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate Andy coming on the Flagship here, presented by College Corner. Like I said, check him out. Andy Staples on 3, wherever you get your podcasts, and at on3.com. We'll do this again soon, as we're already almost to March Madness. We're weeks away. I mean, it'll be spring game season before we know it, and we'll be back to talk with Andy soon. So appreciate it, my guy, and hey, good luck out there fishing in the Keys.
Oh, I can't wait. No, not stopping the shows, by the way. Still got shows.
Gonna be
just
live?
Doing shows from the Keys.
Are you gonna be like Levitard with like the backdrop and everything?
I haven't figured that out yet. But let's put it this way: the house has a dock that goes right into Florida Bay, and maybe I'll do it on the dock. Depends on the wind noise.
You could. Well, you got to factor that in with.
I don't know how long the Wi-Fi reaches out of the house. That's the question.
You got to go to where is it? You got to go to Captain Tony's and do a podcast from Mike Leach's.
Well, Captain Tony's is in Key West, and I have been to.
Okay.
to Mike Leach's Barstool there. We're going to be in the Upper Keys.
Okay.
I actually lived in the Keys for 4 years when I was a kid, so a
Okay.
little familiar with the terrain. But yeah, we're going to be up near Key Largo, Island
Okay.
Tavernier area. So
I foolishly just assumed Keys, Key West. So
no, and that's the thing. Everybody's got their own flavor. Like some people are big Pine Key people, some people are Deer Key people. Like there's a lot of some people like to go to Marathon. There's a lot of keys for everybody.
Well, that's Andy Staples. Again, check out the podcast, check out the written work at on3.com. That is going to do it for this Friday edition of the Flagship. Everybody enjoy your weekend, getting ready for March Madness. For Andy over there, I'm Zach. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We out of here.